Another episode of With the Chiefs.
Wait. Man, I need more rest.
I hope I've got your last name right there.
It's a very good pronunciation.
You should know better than that now, Donald.
I know.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of With the Chiefs. Today we have with us Paddy Stow. Paddy is an incredibly talented runner and coach based in Albury. Just to go through some of Paddy's personal bests, I hope I actually get these right, but you can correct me if they're wrong, Paddy. So in the 5K,
Sure.
we got 14:35, 10K, 29:51, half marathon, 66:51. And then obviously Paddy also recently competed in 6-foot track marathon, placing third. So we're going to talk about that today as well. So welcome to the show, Paddy.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, you got most of the PBs right. The 5K is a little bit quicker now. And
Oh,
the
yeah?
half marathon's a smidge quicker, but we can touch on them later on.
All right.
5K, I ran of 14:28.
Oh, yeah?
That was, just prior to Christmas.
Oh, beauty.
And the half marathon 66:34 at the beginning of last year. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, go on,
you had
Dom.
a good marathon as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I did the Gold Coast Marathon last year and ran 2:20:20. Nice even numbers there.
Oh, beautiful.
20s.
Yeah. It
Is
would have
that-
been nice to break 2:20, but it didn't happen.
It's so close to, feels like a different thing, sub 220, but you're right. It's literally a few seconds.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's but yeah, we'll probably touch on that at some point, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. We normally just do a bit of a recap of our training weeks, and then we'll sort of get into other topics. So what have you been doing in terms of training over the past week?
Over the past week, not a whole lot. Given that 6-foot was Saturday a week ago, I haven't ran this week. So I've been to the gym a few times. I've been on the bike. Nothing crazy. I'll go back to my first run tomorrow. So nothing really exciting there, but yeah, especially in comparison to the weeks leading up to 6-foot, because I was doing quite different training to what I normally would do. But the week just gone has been very, very uninteresting and boring.
Did you find the break a good mental reset, or literally just boring?
The first few days I definitely needed the reset, 100%. I was pretty cooked after 6-foot. But yeah, the back end of the week, I was like, once the body had recovered, I was really ready to run again. And it was more just biding my time and making sure that I respected the effort that I'd done on that Saturday. So I probably could have ran, Wednesday, Thursday, and definitely over the weekend, but I'll hold out until tomorrow morning, bright and early, get out, and I'll be chewing at the bit again to get back into some sort of training.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Is the getting on the bike after a race, is that what you normally do?
I can't really say what I'd normally do because 6-foot being the longest race that I'd done, obviously, and given how strenuous it is on the body, it's probably something I respected a little bit more. After Gold Coast Marathon, I think it was 4 days completely off. And then my partner and I, we went up to Noosa for a week after the marathon. So, I didn't do much running, drank a lot of beers. But yeah, I mean, I think give or take the week is probably something that I would, it's what I'd give to my athletes, absolutely, at least. And then I would start off with another week just of easy running. But yeah, the bike, the first 2 sessions on the bike are okay, but it's boring as batshit just sitting there in the gym. And I don't really belong in the gym compared to some of the big fellas that are getting around. So sitting on the bike in your own pool of sweat's pretty disgusting, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Did you do anything else in the gym or?
As in this week, did I do anything else in the gym?
Yeah, yep.
A little bit of lifting, nothing crazy. Predominantly upper body. As you would have seen at 6 foot Dom, I'm not the biggest unit getting around. So getting on the bench press or in the squat rack isn't necessarily my strength. But yeah, I did a little bit of lifting, nothing crazy. Not trying to be a hero, and 2 or 3 sessions in 1 week's not going to change my physiology and the way I look. So yeah, it was more just based on getting in there, getting some Ks in on the bike, and then flex a little bit of muscle, but nothing crazy.
I'd love to see you lifting a couple of bicep curls.
Yeah, a couple of 2.5s in each hand. Just it's like those ladies back in like the 70s when they're wearing the high vis fluoro get up and they're just pumping.
That I've already
Step
said. I've already
class.
claimed that's going to be when I retire from running. That's going to be my sport. Just going around the bay, walking with those. Probably not 2.5 kilo. Might be too heavy, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, probably in Sydney you can get away with it, but not down here in Albury. I think it wouldn't last very long.
Fair enough. Dom, what have you been up to the last week?
Yeah, it's been kind of tough. Like usually I'd probably do something similar to Paddy and take like a whole week off at least. But I've got this race this weekend, which is probably, I don't know, a bit dumb, but it's like a 6-hour around the track. So kind of had that.
Really?
Yeah.
I forgot about that one, Dom.
Yeah.
6 hours?
Yeah, 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had that in the back of my mind, and I was like, I've probably got to do a little bit of running and kind of keep the training going somewhat. Because otherwise I'd end up having like too much taper almost. It would be this week off, next week off. I don't know. I probably could have done it that way, but yeah, I decided just to get running a little bit. So on Monday, I got out for a run and just felt absolutely trashed. I think I only did like 5 or 6 Ks. Then I ran a couple more times during the week and did the 440, which is like a hilly kind of loop. This Saturday that's just gone by, that was probably like the hardest thing I did all week. And then a bit on the bike, got a massage as well, which was good. So yeah, I'm feeling all right. I feel like I got away with it. I don't have any niggles or anything really kind of that's still sore. So yeah, hopefully this week I can kind of do another little taper and maybe get one kind of preparation session in, and then be good to go for next Saturday.
Well, that's big stuff, mate. Bloody. Yeah. Well, I have a question. Do you have to run 45 minutes as your second after you do the 6-hour run? Do you have to run another time as a part of the 75 hard challenge?
Yeah, no, I've kind of like, I like on 6 foot, I didn't do another session. So yeah, I think I'll probably apply the same principle. My theory was that I stopped for water breaks during 6 foot, so it can count as 2 sessions, and I'm sure I'm going to stop for a water break hour, so that's 2 sessions. But
I'm sure when it's submitted for approval, they're not going to crucify you for not doing a second 45-minute session after a 6-hour track race.
Yeah, most people have all the guys who were doing the challenge with, they've all dropped off now anyway. So I'm one of the last men standing. Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a question for you, Dom. When you said on the Monday you felt like trash, was that general fatigue, or was it your body, as in like muscularly you just felt rubbish, or what was it, a mixture of both? Likely it probably was.
Yeah, mainly it was just muscular though.
Yeah, okay.
Just my quads were absolutely cooked. I think that 6 foot the track is just so brutal. Like I haven't done too many races as hard as that before. But yeah, fatigue wise, like I didn't feel too bad. I think that like even at work and stuff in the past after a marathon, I felt really foggy and like you can't really concentrate. You're just not that productive. But I felt like I was still not too bad this week, which was good.
Yeah, nice. That's a really good outcome then.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten away with it, which is pretty stoked with that. But what about you, Smitty?
Me, jeez. So I had a bit of a, maybe call it a lazy week, but it started from last Saturday where I did 60 minutes and then had a wedding, had a wedding on the Saturday, which kind of big Italian wedding. So it cancelled out Sunday. Didn't run on Sunday. You could probably imagine why. But it was it was good fun. Then I didn't actually run. Monday or Tuesday. To be honest, I just felt like I wasn't in the groove. By Wednesday, I ran just 60 minutes, easy / steady. I think it did a bit of a tempo effort for a short period of time. Friday didn't run Thursday. Friday I ran easy just around the bay with a couple of friends, which was nice. And then Saturday I did Rhodes Park Run. Sort of I was at that stage where I was like, okay, let's see where the fitness is. It's funny, you take like a few days off or even like maybe a week and a half of not so great training or something like that, and you just assume your fitness is gone. Well, that's for me at least. But yeah, it was good. I mean, I ran 16:40 there. I felt pretty motivated to run. And gave it a good nudge. And then sort of after that, I did a 10-minute tempo. I was there with Tobias as well. Tempo went pretty well. And then I ran just 70 easy today. So nothing crazy. Yeah, so probably just try and get back into it and build some momentum realistically. So it was.
What are you training for, Smitty?
I am training for, I think, Gold Coast half was going to be sort of the main one, and then potentially Berlin, but I keep flip-flopping on that idea.
Mate, what do you mean? Come to Berlin. I'm doing Berlin too. That's going to be elite.
Yeah.
I'd be silly not to, hey.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You'd be a goose.
I just need to get in the groove again. I feel like, I don't know. Yeah. Just momentum for me at the moment just goes up and down. I wouldn't say I'm like too concerned, but you definitely do need to like get into that rhythm of training if you want to prepare properly for a race. Especially when you're brushing up against like previous times, which are relatively quick. Compared to what you've done in the past, you still got to like to maintain that level of fitness. You need consistency. You can't be going to weddings and then not running for like doing 40K weeks. You've probably got to string some stuff together. But yeah, I'll probably just focus on getting to Gold Coast, build up the Ks a bit. Yeah, but not too. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how we go, but. Yeah, that's my week. I know I can. Dom knows how these go. If I'm not careful, I just keep talking for another 25 minutes. But
I haven't done too many of those. When you do a park run and then do a session afterwards. But
yeah,
how do you feel going from, say, if you've done a park run at a fairly hard effort, 5Ks, and then you have a little bit of I assume a smidge of a break, and then you go into a tempo. How does that tempo feel after you do, a hard effort for 16.5 minutes?
It felt okay. Like I think like comparing to what you would do, say you were doing like a threshold or like a tempo, the pace wasn't as quick, but so you maintained. I felt like I got up to a certain effort level that was similar, obviously, albeit a bit slower, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was just felt like that's the first time I've actually done that. Tobias suggested we do that, and it just felt like it was good to get moving, like try and get moving after that hard effort and get the legs turning over again. I really enjoyed that session actually. So it was quite good. I enjoyed it. Have you done something those kind of sessions before, Paddy, or do you?
I mean, park run few and far between really that I'll do.
Yeah.
I've never really done sort of say like an all out park run and then gone and done another sort of a session afterwards.
Mhm.
I've definitely done park runs in the past as, say, a taper session for a race, say the following week or within 10 days or something like that. I've definitely done that before. But I do like the idea of using park run within a session, I think, or even within a long run, and using the park run as, say, you're doing an effort at marathon pace or something like that. I think it's incredibly beneficial, and people seem to, regardless of whether it's after they've already run 30 Ks that morning and then they can go do some effort at marathon pace, just being surrounded by people will decrease that perceived
Yeah,
level
it
of
does.
exertion. So I'm all for it. I should do it more often, but just with how my weeks normally look, parkrun doesn't really sit into it too much.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And on your point with the definitely boosts your motivation a bit. Having everyone running, and then sort of when you turn, if there's a point where you turn around and you're coming back, and everyone's always very positive at parkrun,
Yeah.
which is great. It definitely gives you a boost. I think we'll probably do some form of session, like maybe like 3x5K towards the end, and do maybe the last one or the middle one in parkrun. That could be an idea as well. But yeah. Anyway, boys, how was this race? Talk me through it. What do you Yeah, Paddy, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was I had mixed feelings about the race. I can pretty much put it into two parts, or I have two outcomes from the race. One is probably results driven, and the other one would be execution driven. The results I was stoked with. Like I finished third in like what's Australia's most iconic trail race. Well, that's what they brand it. So many people have done it in the past. They get a good mixture of the trail guys and the road guys and that sort of thing. So based purely off the result, absolutely stoked. I think it was awesome. The way I executed the race leaves much more to be desired. Yeah, it was pretty much a tale of 2 days within the one race for me. That's for sure.
What happened? Why? Yeah, why would you say
Um,
that?
I mean, yeah. So essentially, I mean, we can go play by play if you like.
Yeah, mate, 100%. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, Smitty, but so you start down these stairs at Explorer's Tree to go, and you go down Nellie's Glen, and that is not my thing at all. Like there's some blokes that were just flying past me. I could not believe it. I was like, what are these dudes doing? And for reference, I was wearing Nike Vaporfly Next Percents.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw a
And
photo. I saw a photo of those completely torn up.
yeah, they're cooked, mate. They're sitting at the front door at the moment. They are gassed. They need to go in the bin. But I just could not believe how some of these guys were moving down this section, considering it was only about a K and a half of trail, literally pitter pattering on the spot. And I think I was probably in about 15th place. We got out onto this nice open fire trail, gentle downhill. You could roll the legs a little bit. And I was a little bit conservative at the start, and then just sort of started to pick people up as I got into, as I warmed up and got into how I wanted to run the race. And so much so, we got to this first road crossing, and I think it was about 8K mark. And I said to the volunteers there, I was like, oh, so like how far behind first am I? And they go, oh, you are in first place. And I was like, oh shit, that wasn't the plan. So I pulled it right back from there, because I just wanted to be super conservative down to Cox's River, because I knew that's where the race was going to start. So I pulled it right back, and that's when Ronnie and Dom got on the back of me on the single trail down to the river. And I said to Ronnie, hey mate, do you want to go past? Like, I'm just chilling. And he's like, nah, mate, I'll just sit in. And he fell like twice or something in that short period of a couple of K. And I'm like, mate, whatever you do, don't trip over and run into me. Like, I don't know what the bloody hell's going on here. So just calm down. So we got to this section of Cox's River, and I went through the water between Dom and Ronnie. I couldn't believe how deep the water was. Thank God that the rope was there for me to hold on to, because all of a sudden it was up just below my chin, and I was like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting that. And then the race really started. And for me, Dom and I discussed it, up the hills, like the hills out of all this sort of trail running business, if we want to call it that, that's probably where my strength lies. And I pulled away from Ronnie pretty quickly, and I was being quite conservative up the climb because the plan was to get to the top of the climb and then get into marathon effort. And that's when I could actually start to race the race. But yeah, the body had different ideas. I got up the first half of the climb and then he dipped down for a couple of K, no worries at all. Another fella named Luke, who eventually finished second, he sort of came by me at the beginning of the second climb, and I thought, awesome, I've got someone to run with. This is fantastic. I can gauge my effort. I haven't seen anyone since the river. This is perfect. And we were going up the steepish bits of this, we'll call it the second climb to the top. And yeah, I was able to sort of pitter patter away from him in sections. And then I felt like I was beginning to go into the red zone a little bit too much. So just brought the effort back and let him sort of get away. And I thought, yeah, once I get to the top, happy days. But that didn't end up being the case.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, Dom. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's like same sort of thing for me. I was thinking like, yeah, I went into it with a similar strategy, like kind of, I don't know, go steady to Cox's River. And yeah, I thought I was like in 15th as well when I was in third. I didn't even realize I was in third though until like after the race. And yeah, I got to the hills and I kind of knew I was just going to be cooked because I hadn't really done too many hills in training. And then from then on, it was just kind of just don't stop running and shuffle your way to the finish pretty much. Especially once we got to the top, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll be able to open up my stride a bit and run. But like, yeah, I was just gone. Like I was absolutely cooked.
Yeah. As a rookie in this sort of space, how are you managing your like effort when there's hills and stuff? Because obviously in marathon, you sort of pretty dialed in to a pace, or like a road marathon, obviously. So what are your thoughts on that? Maybe start with Paddy and get your thoughts, Tom.
Yeah, for me, I knew that I didn't need to get down to Cox's River any quicker than an hour. I knew that was going to be too far, and it's 15 and a half K, I think it is. And there was a section there where I looked down at my watch and it felt like I was jogging essentially. And it was like 3:58 sort of average. And I was like, okay, I need to bring it right back. And that's when Ronnie and Dom came up the back of me, and I'm like, beautiful. I'll just can chill right out. I'm at the front. I can control the effort, etc. For me, once I got to the top, the plan was, given that it's you get to the top, so to speak, and then it is a gentle climb, and then it undulates a bit, and then your downhill sort of section comes. That was going to be you kind of gauge effort. For me, it's more definitely cadence, how I feel in my stride, and breathing. I sort of have done enough of that type of running now where I know what's dipping into that sort of threshold effort and what's actually coming back to marathon effort. But yeah, once I got to the top and my body's just, it was hating me, and I began cramping, and then that was the end of it. And I was just waiting to get passed by a whole bunch of runners behind me. Luckily, it wasn't the case in the end. But yeah, I wasn't able to open up, that's for sure. Yeah, it was pretty grim once you get to the top, and you know you've got about 17 or 18K worth of running left. And you can't execute what you had trained and what you had planned to do on the day. Yeah, it makes for a pretty tough time, and you battle some demons, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can only imagine when it starts. Well, marathon's tough enough. What do you reckon, Dom? What's your experience with that?
No, I think like I got it wrong for sure on the day. And yeah, I didn't probably gauge my effort well enough. I felt like I was in control to the river. I think I thought it was going to be a lot hotter than it was, so I was drinking like heaps and probably took on too much. Maybe had like gut issues and just felt terrible for a while. Once I got to the top of the climb, but I think on the climb I was pretty much just trying to jog up it and yeah, I don't think I could have really gone any slower, to be honest. Like I was being pretty conservative and was kind of just already in survival mode, which wasn't great. But yeah, I think that's definitely something to work on in the future, and maybe to come up with a few extra methods to control your effort, like heart rate or maybe power or something. It'd be good to try to, I don't know, play around and experiment with a few extra things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but then the other line is it's a race, and like you want to find where your limit is, and you kind of, you need to exceed it in a way to get the result that you're hoping for. So
Yeah.
I wanted to manage my effort, so I knew that I could get to the top and then start running quick. But yeah, it just wasn't the case. But I think it's a race. Like we shouldn't be stuck to watching our watch and power and that sort of shit and heart rate. Like I'm just like, nah, let's just try and leave it all out there. And fingers crossed you've done the work in the lead up to be able to execute it. For Dom and I, it seems like not quite our day, but there were definitely some guys who had awesome runs and were really, really strong in the back half.
Yeah.
That managed it perfectly.
Yeah, sorry, Dom, go on, mate.
There you go, mate.
I was just gonna say it's hard to monitor too many things, and particularly obviously if you do quite a lot of training for a specific race, it's almost like a feeling you want to get dialed into. Pretty hard to describe as well. I don't know. And yeah, I think you're right, Paddy. In the race, I think I experienced in the last 5K, not the last one I did, that when I ran my 5K PB, it was almost like there was nothing to focus on except just running as hard as you can on that limit. Particularly because we had someone pacing as well, which made things easier. But I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to be able to attack it.
Yeah.
And I think the longer a race is, the harder it is to know what to do, and the more chance there is for different variables to come in and for stuff to not go to plan. So something like 6 foot, which is kind of like 3 different races within the one race, it's incredibly difficult to know how to attack, and then you have to adapt to different situations and overcome them. It's just it's a battle, that's for sure.
How come you picked that race? Any particular reason?
Well, it was kind of the idea of my coach, Ashley Hoffman. He had done 6 foot previously, I think either 2018 or 2019. And he liked the fact of being able to do a full sort of marathon build block. And then you do something like, say, 6 foot. And you don't feel like you've had this huge preparation for a road marathon and then it's just done and then you have to start again. And I was in agreement that I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to get a lot of strength from doing all the hilly training and that sort of thing, build a new base and then step forward with having we call it a winter season, and then build into my next marathon being obviously Berlin later in the year. So it was definitely, I was a fish out of water, that's for sure. Like, I mean, there are parts there which are incredibly runnable, particularly that back half once you get to the top of the hill or top of the climb, we'll call it. But that first section, like, and the trail sort of sections, I was an absolute rookie. And definitely, if it was a race for time, I lost all of my time in those sorts of sections, but that's completely fine. I backed myself in the runnable areas. And I'll definitely go back and do it again. But it was just to change it up and to do something a little bit different, to do the marathon block without having to have this huge build up to a road marathon, be so time focused, so pace focused, etc. And just go out and do a longer race.
Yeah, that makes sense. Boys, I'm really sorry. I've picked the wrong account because it's saying I've got 4 minutes left to record. So what I'm going to do is I've got my personal email instead of, so it's giving me a 40-minute limit. So what I'm going to do is I'll send you an email with the new link. Sorry guys, I apologize.
Not good enough, mate. Fucking hell.
Fucking legit, the biggest. Can you be, Dom? You'd think after 50,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be making
Mate.
these rookie errors. You
This
know?
is a fucking shit show. What is going on?
With
I
the
saw it pop
sheep.
up and I was like, hang on.
Yeah, yeah. I saw it. I was hoping no one saw it pop up as well. All right, we're back, gentlemen. My apologies. What were we talking about?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. 6
Um,
foot. Don't know.
It's a tough race. It's a tough race.
Tough race.
Yeah, interesting. All right, maybe Paddy, do you mind going into a bit of how your training and build up went, particularly for that race, like how you were thinking about it, stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. So, compared to the other marathon that I've trained for, being Gold Coast last year, the training for 6 foot was a little bit different. I really, particularly in probably the last 4 weeks, only did one marathon session on a Wednesday, and then just had a really sort of long hilly run on the Sunday. We're quite lucky here in Albury, the surrounding area. We've got access to a whole bunch of different type of running. So, one session we just ran from the bottom to the top of Mount Buffalo, and back. Other sorts of sessions were all pretty much road based and based around marathon pace or marathon effort.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday was normally just like a long hilly run. The first probably, and I didn't really have a specific sort of time block. It wasn't like I did a 10-week block specifically for 6 foot. I spent a bit of time in January up at Falls Creek. I got to have some time off work and did some training up there, which was really, really awesome. And the training up there wasn't sort of, it didn't align well with 6 foot in terms of, I just ran with the groups. So we were doing a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday session, the Sunday long run, that sort of thing. Whereas my usual week is a Tuesday, Friday sessions and then Sunday long run. For 6 foot, it was a Wednesday marathon based session and then a long run, extra hilly on the Sunday, maybe with some, I think there were 2 or 3 runs with some marathon effort towards the end of the session. But otherwise it was just about time on feet, running over hills, up and down hills, that sort of thing.
How did you find it compared to just general sense compared to like a big marathon, your marathon block?
It was different, absolutely. I think that I've come away from it a much stronger runner. Like time on feet and running a bulk amount of hills is so advantageous for general sort of strength, and you become highly economical in your normal running. You are able to put out a lot more power throughout your stride. So in that sense, I'm better for it. There were times where it was really, really boring. I hated wearing a pack and having drinks in it and gels and all that sort of stuff. I hated getting up at like 5:30 and going and running up these steep ass fucking hills for ages. Like some of that sort of stuff, just it was really, really difficult, and it was a lot of time spent alone. And instead of being able to cover, let's say 36K in 2 hours, that was then going out to 2 hours and 40 minutes, 3 hours, because you had to take into account the amount of climbing that you were doing. But yeah, really, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the training. I love running hills, so I had no issues with that. I didn't do any sort of single trail training or anything like that. I didn't do any stairs or anything specifically for 6 foot. And I don't think it would have really changed anything had I done that. Probably the only thing I did lack was downhill running or downhill conditioning. Although if I was running a loop and you cover 1,000 or 1,500 meters of climbing within that long run loop, and finish and start at the same point, obviously there's some downhill running involved with that. But it was always incredibly conservative. It probably was too conservative versus how I ran it on the race day, if that makes sense. So I wasn't trained in beating up the quads as much as I would have liked. But otherwise, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the block. I think I'm much, much better for it. And as we discussed earlier, in terms of race result, stoked. It's just execution, can tinker with a few things, and I'm better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dom, what was your overall sense of the preparation for you?
Yeah, I'm interested. Did you do any track races over the summer, Paddy? Or
It's a little bit hard for me to do the track races. Like AV, Athletics Victoria, who Albury, although we're in New South Wales, it's an Athletics Victoria club because we're on the border. They have fantastic meets down in Melbourne. But we're 3 and a bit hours away from Melbourne, and they're held on like a Thursday night, working full time. It isn't really conducive to being able to make those things work. So I was able to, as we were discussing earlier, I went down for that 5,000 meter for the state champs. So I raced that race. I wanted to do Zatopek, but didn't. I did the graded Zatopek, and had an absolute stinker. That was at the beginning of December. Again, the travel and full-time work and that sort of stuff makes it really, really tricky. I would love to do more track races, but unfortunately, given the living situation, and you take into account travel, full-time work, the fact that these races are normally on like a Tuesday or Thursday evening, it makes it a little bit tricky.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably not a bad thing though. I feel like I was kind of the opposite. I was doing too many track races, kind of like focusing on the 5K. After UTA last year, I took like 8 weeks off, so I was kind of like just getting back into running, and that was sort of what the main focus was, and all I could really train for. I think that if I jumped straight into marathon training, it would have just been too much. But yeah, I ran a decent 5K time. Like I was happy with that, and then I kind of started training for 6 foot with only really like, I don't know, 6 weeks to go, which just, it wasn't enough time really. I think like I ran pretty well, like based off how I trained, and I felt like yeah, I feel like I was just sort of starting to get the mileage up and was getting comfortable with that, but definitely didn't do enough long trail runs like you, and like hilly runs like you as well. I think that's where I really fell apart in the race as well. So it just like goes to show, if you don't train for it, you won't have much luck out there on race day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah. If you had spent 6 weeks just training for your road marathon, you would expect that you wouldn't do too crash hot. So given the result that you got based off the training that you did, yeah, you can't be disappointed with that.
Yeah, no, I felt like it was an experience like nonetheless, and yeah, I felt like I ran decently. So yeah, I was pretty happy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Maybe we like sometimes to just take it back to where it all started. So how did you get started in running, Paddy?
Yeah, I think my story is a little bit unique, but it's also, I think, quite common as well, if that makes sense. So obviously as a young kid, and growing up where I did quite a bit out of town, I didn't do like the little athletics or anything like that. But I did do like school cross country and that sort of thing. And I was okay at it. Like, when you're in primary school, and you're a fit sort of young active kid, I went to like the state championships and all that stuff. But living in the country, and as you do, like I just played Aussie rules. And once I got into high school, running wasn't cool. Playing footy was cool and fun, and you're with your mates, so that's what we did. And it was right up until like I would do running for pre-season, and that sort of thing, but no, I wouldn't go to running races or do any of that sort of stuff. And always thought to myself, people who run are just the rarest cats, aren't they? Like they are some serious units. But it was 2018. At the end of 2018, we got back from Cairns. We went on a footy trip to Cairns. And one of my good mates, Cosmo, he said, "Oh, I'm going to go down and do this park run thing. Do you want to come along?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure. What's park run?" So we went down to the Albury park run, and I couldn't believe it. There was like 300 people all gearing up, free event. You got a time, all that sort of stuff. Awesome. So jumped in, like classic footy player. If you're not going absolutely bonkers at the start and you're not pushing yourself to the limit, you're not getting anything out of it. So I did. And I remember in the last probably 250 meters, a bloke who I know well now, his name's Brad. He was pushing a pram, not with one kid, but two kids in the pram. And he passed me with 250 meters to go. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm supposed to be this young, relatively fit, like footy player, and old mate, couple of kids in the pram. He's just cruising past me in the 5K event. Like, what is happening? So after that, just went down to park run every week just to smash myself over 5K. Played some footy in 2019, early days, and then sort of just recurring shoulder injuries. I was like, I've got to stop doing this. I want to keep fit. Running's a good way to keep fit. And that's pretty much how it all started. Yeah.
Right. So only pretty recent.
Yeah. So I think I would say that the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 was when I started to actually take it seriously.
Yeah.
2019, I was actually lucky enough. I did some ambassador stuff with Movember and went over and ran the New York Marathon as part of the Movember team.
Awesome.
So that was an incredible experience. And I trained for the marathon, but my training was a little bit all over the shop, purely because I was still having to run around the footy every now and again. I wasn't committed to it. I was, finishing up at uni, so drinking beers with my mates was more important. So I did that. But then it was 2020 where Ash Hoffman, who's my current coach now, he sort of said, "Hey, I think you've got some potential. Look, I'm happy to coach you. Do you want to come on?" And the rest is history, really.
Yeah, interesting. So what was when you first started taking it seriously, what did you, was New York, the first marathon or?
Yeah. So I've ran the two marathons.
Yeah.
New York and Gold Coast. So New York I ran, looking back on it, I actually ran really well. So it was 2:42. And I did that off maybe I'd say probably 10 weeks of training. I would call it fairly proper training. 70, 80K sort of a week throughout that block. If all things went to plan, if Saturday night wasn't too big and that sort of stuff. But then, it sort of 2020 went into a structured sort of program. I actually started doing easy pace runs at an easy pace. It wasn't just go out the door and burn yourself up for 20 minutes, 30 minutes and try and get as much VO2 max work as possible, which is what I definitely did at the beginning. And looking back now, particularly as a physio, I'm thinking, fuck, why was I doing that? But anyway, it's yielded some good results now. But at the beginning, the guidance was definitely necessary, and I'm pretty stoked that I pretty much fell into the lap of having someone like Ashley who has guided me really, really well.
Yeah. When you started going from 2:42, then increasing fitness from there, what did the basic structure for you look like in terms of training?
So who are with Run Strong, that's the crew that I coach with and who I'm coached by. Julian Spence and Ellie Pashley, they're the founders of it, and their belief is you have to have a good aerobic base. Long run's the most important run of the week, but you're filtered in with easy runs and recovery runs, and then you do a couple of sessions. So essentially my week just went to, let's just tidy this up completely. I want you to run the classic 80-20 sort of rule. Like 80% of your running is going to be really easy. 20% of your running is going to be difficult. You're going to do sessions. And it pretty much was structured that one session would be a VO2 base / speed session. And the other session would be your sort of threshold or tempo work. And that's how the weeks looked. I just had this really sort of boring Tuesday, Friday session, Sunday long run for end on end on end.
Yeah.
And then just filtered in races when and where I could. And that sort of the speed stuff, it's great. And I feel as though if I, for instance, that 14:28 5K that I ran, it was a 2:42 last K. We were pretty pedestrian, and I just put like 7 seconds into the second bloke over the last K. It was actually over the last 600 meters.
That's
So
wild.
like, and that isn't bragging. It's just that like I don't have the super top end speed that some of these other guys have, but at the same time, I'll be a strength based runner. My focus is to try and get as good as I can over the marathon. So I'm not too worried about missing out on some 5K races down in Melbourne or going to Sydney, etc. It's more about building that strength, and I love running slow. My easy days and my RG days that we call them, recovery days, are pretty pedestrian in comparison to a lot of people who are at the same, levels or PBs as me.
Yeah. When you say easy day, do you have like sort of a more steady pace and an easy, or do you literally just go on feel and take it as easy as you like?
Paces is an interesting one. At the start, I was really, really pace driven.
Mhm.
I was like, my easy runs have to be 4:30 kilometer pace. My recovery runs have to be over 5-minute K pace. And you're running along, and then you're just constantly like looking down at your watch like
Yeah.
a goose. But I got out of that habit pretty quickly. Excuse me. So I was, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much to feel. I'll know if I'm moving really, really well. I'll then look at the pace and say, okay, let's just bring it back a little bit. There'll be days where you can roll low 4-minute Ks, under 4-minute Ks on an easy run, and I've got to bring it right back, and that's completely fine. The rule that I sort of have with my recovery days, and now just because I've done it so frequently over 3 years now, I won't run any quicker than 5-minute K pace. And I think that's suitable for me because my marathon PB pace is 3:20 per kilometer. I think your easy run pace should be no quicker than a minute slower than your marathon pace. And really, there's probably not a great deal of difference between, say, running 4:40s and 5-minute K pace. There's just a little bit of tendon load differences and that sort of thing. But yeah, for me, the slower the better. I love running hills, so that always takes a few seconds off per kilometer. So I don't really have any rules in regards to paces, except for if I'm going for a jog, it's going to be slower than 5-minute K pace.
Interesting. It's nice at least because you can sort of switch the mind off as well, and you don't have to look down at the watch and maintain a certain pace. So you I found that to be just personally a bit more, quite a lot more enjoyable.
Well, do you guys have, like, if you're running from home a lot, do you have loops and you know how far the loop is going to be? For instance, you might have a 12K loop or a 6K loop or something like that, and that's like you're going out for a jog. You don't need to worry about the pace or anything. You know it's going to be the distance that you somewhat need to hit.
Yeah.
So you just forget about pace completely. That's what I do anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. What about you, Dom? You sort of pretty casual, right, with pace?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think it's all pretty much just a feel, and I think we've spoken about it before. But like even like running to work or whatever, you have like an extra incentive to go even slower because you got a whole day of work ahead of you, and you're going to have to run home in the afternoon anyways. So I think stuff like that is good, and just keeping the easy days as easy as possible. But definitely, I think everyone kind of goes through that journey where you're so attached to the pace, and you're looking down at your watch, and you know like it has to be under 5-minute Ks. It has to have a 4 in front of it, and you'll feel good about your run. Otherwise, you feel like you're not going fast enough.
It's super interesting, the pace stuff though. Like, for instance, I was criminal at the beginning. I was like, oh, it feels easy. And it felt easy, but it definitely wasn't an easy effort. And I see it all the time, like, and particularly with the athletes that I coach and that I work with, and they're like, oh, it feels easy. And I'm like, yeah, but dude, you're running your easy days quicker than I am. Like, that's not how it really works. You're so more susceptible to injuries and overload and that sort of thing if you actually don't put the brakes on a smidge. And for some people, it's actually helpful for them at the start to be guided with paces rather than feel, because if it's to feel, it's open for interpretation, and it's so subjective to how someone feels rather than it being purely objective.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I remember when I first started looking, literally following, because they have certain, obviously meant to be guidelines, but they have certain ranges for pace based on if you have a certain time in a race. Like this would equate to this is easy, this is like recovery. And I think initially I take it way too literally, which leads to, heart rate strap on. I guess it's pretty much just what works for you. Like I find it
Yeah.
just takes a lot of enjoyment out personally. But you never know, like we're all different, but it is hard at first to know like what easy is when you're first starting, for sure. But what are some of your favorite sessions? What do you like to do, say in a marathon block, for example?
I wish I'd ran more marathons to be able to answer this question better. Really. I've always found I prefer. I hate progressive runs. I can rule that out straight away. That's my least favorite session. Any
Yeah.
sort of progression run.
Okay.
I don't really like it. Which is funny because that's really how a race should be. It should be a progression run, shouldn't it? You always talk about negative splits and that sort of thing. I fucking hate progressive sessions. It's the worst thing in the world.
Why? It's just
I don't know. I just have never. I feel like I've only ever nailed a couple of them, and I've had ones where I haven't necessarily blown up, but I haven't been able to hit the quicker paces towards the end. And then when that happens a couple of times, you're just like, nah, this is shit. Move on. Give me something else, please, coach. Favorite sessions. I love doing stuff in marathon blocks, say like 6K at marathon pace, breaking it up with some like 10 by minute on, minute off, and then go back to that 6K at marathon pace. I feel like those sorts of sessions where you can break it up with some quicker stuff in the middle, it always makes that back end feel so much easier. Something that I've done a little bit of was, say, going and doing your normal sort of 2 hour long run over hills, and then you do some marathon paced work at the end. I always find those sorts of sessions really, really fun and beneficial. I don't mind doing 400s on the track. That's okay. They're pretty easy. I hate 300s on the track. I'm not sure why, but I hate doing 300s, but I love doing 400s. My least favorite session besides the progressive runs would probably be like the generic 8x off 60 seconds, the old Melbourne Track Club special. Oh fuck, we did that every week at Falls Creek, and it's just so shit. Like it's just the worst session. You're just running a K. Oh yeah, we've got 60 seconds. Yep, we'll go back. It's okay when you've got a group, but predominantly my training is mostly done solo. So 8x sucks. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to all sorts of sessions. I like the longer stuff. Stuff tilting over that sort of 30 minutes into that 45 to 60 minute range suits me and my physiology quite well. So I prefer that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. When did your fitness start really like going wild? Because obviously first marathon 2:42, then obviously progressed into really quick times. Like when did you see points where you just started spiking, or was it just quite gradual?
Given the lack of racing I've probably actually done, I would say it has been quite a gradual sort of progression. I think I really started to notice it the third half marathon I did, and I ran 69 minutes, and that was like sort of a barrier for me. I was like, oh, if I can run under 70 minutes for a half marathon, I think I'm doing okay at this thing. And that was at Wangaratta half marathon, which funnily enough was ran today in 2020, just prior to COVID kicking off. And I ran that solo, and I was like, that's when I noticed, I was like, yes, I think I've got like some skill here. So that was probably the one race that sticks out in my mind where I thought, oh, I'm actually okay at this. I'm not, spending 8 to 10 hours a week just running around in circles like a crazy madman for nothing. I think there's some potential that I could, at least get the best out of myself in this space, because that's just what I wanted to do from the beginning. After you you finish playing footy, and it's so team orientated. However, it's individualistic in a way because how you prepare is so much more different to how Bobby over there prepares, and how much you give compared to, say, Jono over there, how much he gives. There's just vast differences. So knowing that what you get out, what you put in running is super rewarding, and that's like when you do these races and you get really, really good results, you're sort of on the right path. It's a long way to answer that question, by the way.
No, that's perfect. It's just certainly a level of talent. Yeah, it's quick, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like it's all relative too. Like you talk to someone who might be a 25-minute 5K runner, and they want to ask you about your running and that sort of thing, but they might only be putting in 2 or 3 hours a week of running versus, at the peak of this 6 foot block, I was probably putting in 12 to 13 hours a week of running. So it's all relative. But yeah, I think coming into the sport a bit later, and having, a strength base from playing a team sport such as Aussie Rules footy, where there is still quite a bit of aerobic work, has been super beneficial for my long distance running for sure.
Yeah, I think the AFL, the guys who are doing that, they're all just absolute engines. A lot of them, there's been a couple of races where just these guys rock up out of nowhere and they go out and just towel everyone up, and everyone's like, "Oh, who are these guys?" And most of the time, they're just AFL footy players who are just weapons. So I think you've probably got a pretty good background behind you before you even started running. But yeah, I think now you mentioned you're coaching and physio as well. How'd you sort of get into that?
So the coaching side of things, I think it was just another gradual thing that comes on once you've been doing it for a little while. People start, and once you get, like, you become good at something, people start to ask you questions and that sort of thing. But literally, I had just got a message from Ellie one day, and she's just like, "Hey, do you want to do some coaching?" And I was like, I'd written some programs for some mates and stuff who were doing, like, say, Melbourne Marathon or something like that. And I just sort of did like a 12-week, and I'm just like, this is what you got to follow. If you miss this, it doesn't really matter. You have to try and make it up here, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas this sort of stuff is just very, very very, very structured. You're changing plans. You can be changing plans 2 or 3 times a week for that given week. So it was the middle of 2021 when I started coaching, and now have 13 athletes, all very, very various backgrounds and goals, which is really, really cool because it tests me in different sort of ways, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. The physio background helps too, although people like to gravitate towards physios for some reason, and a lot of runners are physios. A lot of runners are either school teachers or physios, it seems to be. So the physio background helps dramatically, I think, from that load sense and understanding how important it is to manage not just the load of, like, the physical stress of running, but also life stresses. You're different, you might be doing some strength training, etc. It all adds up. So I think thus far no one has hurt themselves or gotten injured to a great extent. And it's been really, really fun, and watching people achieve their goals, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, seems like you could be kind of writing your own checks there, like coaching, causing some injuries, and then giving them physio.
yeah. I mean, I must be doing it the wrong way then. But I mean, the majority of it is online. So if you guys have some mates who are physios and they want some work, let me know where they live, and I'll try and tee some stuff up for them. Just don't tell my athletes.
I was like, am I getting the joke here? Yeah, I'm getting it.
And I guess I guess your running and your physio has kind of helped develop your coaching philosophies. Is there anything else that coaching wise you're really sort of stick by as like a core sort of belief that you give to your athletes, or?
Oh, yeah, that's a really, really good question because I think that my beliefs are heavily shaped by Julian and Ellie's, and then obviously my own coaching in Ashley. I think one, because I've seen my own success from it, and I'm still on an upward trajectory, very much so. So I feel as though the definitely aerobic based athletes is probably my number one sort of thing. And I think you have to do the work aerobically before you can look at doing any sort of anaerobic stuff. So from a physiological point of view, that would be where I sort of sit. I want to develop you as an aerobic athlete. Most of the people I'm working with want to do long distance stuff, half marathon, that sort of thing. So it makes no sense for me to get them on the track doing flat out 200s and the deathly 300s. But I think, yeah, from a physical point of view, definitely just conditioning them to be aerobic athletes is number one. My personal sort of thing would be building a relationship and communication. It sounds sort of cliche, but all my athletes, we email them at the start and we set up, a phone call and all that sort of bullshit. But then it's straight to like, if you've got an issue, send me a text. If there's a reason you can't do something, let's have a chat about it. Let's catch up the week before your race. We'll do a FaceTime or a phone call. As soon as your race is finished and you've done well, I'll give you a phone call. If you've had an absolute stinker, let's have a chat about it. I think building the relationship is something that's really, really important to me. And that leads to like a friendship down the track. Like I had an athlete, Daniel, who stayed at my place in Albury a few weeks ago, who was coming to do a race down here. Italian fella, Smitty, you all know each other, don't you? So you probably know.
Pretty much, he was probably at the wedding I was at before.
Yeah, potentially,
Yeah.
potentially. But he came and stayed, and we had a bottle of red wine, and like it sounds like a date. Poor old Bronte, my missus, is just pushed over to the side. But like it's stuff like that which I think is really, really beneficial to build a relationship, because it helps me get the best out of them, but it also allows them to give back to me so I can better myself and better my sort of coaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, yeah, having that relationship and like a training partners or a coach, it helps you stay in the sport and keeps you motivated, and it's ultimately what'll make you a better runner. Like I feel like it's so important having that mindset behind what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, here in Albury, for instance, there's no one who is necessarily at the level that I'm at or wants to go past that sort of level. So having that training group is something that that I kind of lack. However, I'm lucky enough to run with my coach. We'll run together a couple of times a week, and he might jump in and out of my sessions and that sort of thing. Another guy that we do a bit of running with, Jack, is like the most dedicated bloke to his running in the world. It's awesome to sort of see how, although he's not at the heights of some of our best runners in Australia, he's probably at least as dedicated as some of them in terms of getting better with the physiology that he's gifted with. There's another guy called Matty Doré who you may have met him, Dom, at Buffalo Stampede or something like that. He's built an amazing community here in Albury for running, particularly that sort of longer distance trail running sort of scene. And yeah, it's pretty awesome to see we're doing the same thing, but we're doing very, very different things. So it's pretty awesome to see a coach like, say, Maddie have that influence over people, or a coach like Ashley have that influence over myself and Jack, to get us better. So it's a pretty cool thing, and it's super, super rewarding to see your athletes achieve a goal that they've had set out for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like Albury, the trail runners, there's a lot of depth there. Like, it seems like, all the guys who you're just talking about, like, so much talent for a small kind of country town. Yeah,
there's definitely like some good guys getting around, and some girls too. There's some awesome girls here in Albury, like Ash's wife Kelly. She's a really good runner. Matt's wife Belle is a really good runner. The only issue is they keep popping out kids, so they spend a little bit of time on the sideline. Ellie Pashley, she's an Albury girl, so there's definitely something in the water here. producing, some good distance runners. So yeah, if you guys want to get any good at running, you have to come down to Albury and join in.
I thought I was missing something.
Yeah. Well, just don't bring your IT skills, Smitty. We should be safe there, mate.
I'm in big trouble. Well, it's clearly reason I'm in sales and didn't become a technician for sure. But anyway, Dom, you normally go into the
Yeah, a bit of a more kind of, I don't know, shorter, sharper segment. Have you got any like lifestyle running sort of tips? I guess we'll start off with like shoes. Like, what shoes are you wearing at the moment? Anything you swear by?
Oh, mate, great question. Shoes, like the epitome of being a distance runner is the amount of different shoes you can have. Hey,
Yeah.
the front door, there's like 20 pairs of shoes. The bedroom, that's where the good shoes go. The Alpha Flies, the Endorphin Pros, they sit in the bedroom. Yeah, shoes, I have a pretty good rotation. I'm always talking to Julian. He owns a running shoe store, so we're always having a chat about shoes. I'm very much one shoe does one job, another shoe does another job. So a recovery run, like Nike Invincible, like that shoe is just a pillow on your foot. I also wear a Mizuno shoe, Mizuno Horizon, I think it's called. That's a pretty nice big stack shoe. Easy run shoes. Yeah, I mean anything and everything. I think Asics have some really good sort of easy day shoes. The Nova Blast 3 is a phenomenal shoe.
I love them.
Yeah, it's just like I have this issue that everything seems to be really high stack.
Yeah.
And like I'll put on a Saucony Kinvara, and I'm like, there's still 30 mil of foam or something in that, but it feels like I'm, in those Vibram toe shoes because there's just nothing in them.
Yeah. Like there's no drop
yeah.
in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just like, fuck, I actually have to like use my calf to generate some force here. But I went through this stage where I wouldn't wear super shoes for sessions. By super shoe as in like I wouldn't wear a carbon plated shoe. My favorite shoe of all time is the Saucony Endorphin Speed, particularly the second iteration of that shoe. Countless amount of miles for sessions in that shoe. But yeah, I mean, it's hit and miss now. I think there's that many different shoes. You're bound to not get a dud. So as long as you've got a rotation, I think it's fine. I wouldn't wear the same shoe 2 days in a row ever. But that's just personally because I'm lucky enough to be in a situation where I can afford being able to purchase multiple pairs of shoes. I'm super, super lucky and grateful to be able to do that. But yeah, I think, I definitely have various types of shoes for different types of running. That's for sure. No trail shoes though. I don't own a pair of those things. And no gaiters either. I don't own any gaiters.
What are gators?
You know those things that you wear around your ankles that like stop the rocks and
right.
tumbleweed and stuff from going in? Yeah.
No, I don't have those.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, sweet. No, none of those.
I guess the next one is like another big one that everyone's always got their 2 cents worth on. Diet. Have you got any sort of hard or fast sort of rules with your diet, or anything you kind of follow?
My diet is shit house. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. I'm super, super lucky. Bronte does the majority of the cooking and she's a fantastic cook. So our dinners are always amazing. It's something I want to get better at, and I think it's an area where I have this sort of untapped potential in terms of 1%ers to be able to get better at. So yeah, I mean, I don't follow any sort of diet. I just make sure that I'm eating enough. I'll eat a lot. What I've been able to do since spending a couple of weeks up at Falls Creek is getting used to having food before I run, which I think has been a game changer because I went like 3 years, every single run first thing in the morning, I wouldn't eat anything at all. Whereas now I'm able to stomach and digest a couple of bits of toast with honey, and that's been really, really helpful. But otherwise, no, my diet is terrible. I'm the worst person to ask about that question. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess next one would be like any supplements or I don't know, tablets, vitamins, anything else you're taking or
Yeah, I mean, I think Pillar Performance have done an amazing job of marketing their range because I have all of it, and I don't use half of it. So well done, Pillar Performance. Quick shout out for them. If you want to send me something, guys, go ahead. That's sweet. But
Yeah,
I
same
think,
actually.
yeah,
Look,
yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
do you need anything, Dom? I'll
yeah, we're
keep you
looking for a
word of mouth.
We're
sponsor.
looking for a sponsor, so
Yeah, proudly brought to you by Pillar Performance. But yeah, yeah. I mean, look, protein powder is probably something I'm being the most consistent with. Um, so yeah, I'd have just like a whey protein isolate after a workout. I got into a stage where I was having it after every run. I've done a bit of running with Ben Buckingham, this Olympic steeplechaser, and he's been in my ear about, mate, you've got to get on the protein. He has a tub of protein in the boot of his car. The shaker's there, and I'm a pussy. I can't do it with milk, with water. Sorry, I have to do it with milk. So I'm not leaving some milk in the back of the car for 2.5 hours and then like sucking that in after a long run, mate. Like, and he's like, "Nah, mate, just bring an esky. It'll be sweet." And I'm like, oh, "What are you talking about, dude?" Anyway, so yeah, in terms of yeah, those sorts of things. Yeah, protein powder would be the number one thing. But I mean, I've flirted with the vitamin D. I've tried the magnesium for enhancing sleep and that sort of stuff. Hit and miss if any of it really does work. I've tried bouts of supplementing the vitamin C and vitamin D in terms of if you're feeling unwell and that sort of stuff. But really, I don't have anything that I follow religiously. No.
okay. I guess the other one was like gear and equipment. So we know you're definitely not a gator guy. But,
at least I know what that is now.
Yeah, learn something new every day. Yeah, I'm not a gator guy, and I'm not a pack wearer. Although I did quite a few runs with the pack prior to 6 foot, and then obviously wore a pack through the race. I wouldn't willingly wear one. Other sorts of gear, like I love wearing the sunnies, the Oakley sunnies, made famous by Sinead Diver, I believe, at some stage throughout her illustrious career.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, like, again, the beauty, and super lucky and grateful to be able to do so, but the beauty of running, being able to purchase, every single brand has some, new technology that they want you to try. And for some reason, their marketing seems to be really good because there's money coming out of my bank account and there's shirts and socks and shorts in my drawers. But yeah, I mean, probably the one thing would be sunnies. I'm wearing sunnies. I normally run with a hat, except when I'm racing, give or take a few different races. But yeah, and watch, obviously. I'm pretty religious with wearing the watch unless it's a track race. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess, yeah, usually we kind of wrap up with, yeah, your favorite race and just running us through like, yeah, what sort of special moments running wise you've had so far. Unless Smitty's got any other questions.
Nah, we'll just lead into the favorite race, Dom.
Oh, the favorite race, hey? The favorite race. Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's probably relatively straightforward for me to answer it. It has to be Gold Coast Marathon. Now, running an out and back and then going past the finish line at 32K and then doing another out and back isn't too exciting. But in terms of something that I'll remember for a long period of time and something that I think has taken me to the next stage and has progressed me as a runner was probably that race. And I know that I'm a fair way off where I want to be. And the guys that I sort of idolize and want to get to, they're, miles ahead of me. But that race sort of bridged the gap a smidge. And to, run a 2:20 marathon, like I'm pretty stoked with that.
Yeah.
And the
100%.
way I executed the race was really, really good. Like I ran 70:08 first half, 70:12 second half. So a positive split by 4 seconds. Like you can't be angry with that. The way that it was run too, we had a group until 20 4K, I think it was. And we were lucky enough, we actually had 2 pacers in the group, and the pacer one of the pacers, Guy Walters, had stepped off at 24Ks. And then I had a look, and then the group had gone from like 8 blokes to myself, another runner named Aidan Hobbs, and then Andy Buchanan, who took us through to about 28K. So yeah, to run it, whereas we'll go to Berlin, Smitty, and there'll be 50 people in that pack, and you can just hang out all day. So to run it the way that I did, I have really, really fond memories of that race, and it was super, super funny at the end. So got through the finish line, hung around for 30 seconds, a minute, shook the hands of the other blokes that were around me, that sort of thing. Had a big spew. All the Morton that I consumed throughout that 2 hours just came out on the side there. And then I walked through like the finish section where you get like your t-shirt and there's fruit and drinks and that sort of thing. And because the winners obviously have to do like press stuff, and none of the guys, I finished 8th. So the first 3 obviously have to do their own thing, and then a couple of the other guys were still hanging out, kissing cheeks, that sort of stuff. I walked through, and because I was the first person to walk through, they all thought I won. It was the best thing ever. Like I was like, no, I didn't. And they're like celebrating and like thinking I'm an absolute legend. And I'm like, no, like I've won.
Should have just gone with it. Can you imagine?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're like, what'd you run? Like, what time did you run? I'm like, I actually don't know. And someone got their phone up and they were looking through the live results, and she thankfully didn't say, oh no, he actually didn't win. And then the crowd went quiet. But yeah, it was pretty funny to be able to walk through there and everyone thinking you had won the race, and I definitely did not. And even when we got back to the like hotel and had brekkie and that sort of thing, like having a shower after that, and sat down in the shower because you're absolutely rooted. You've just run a marathon, and you get a little bit of emotion, like you get a bit emotional because there's so much that's attached to the race, and you think about the build up and the sacrifices and that sort of stuff. Again, it all sounds really, really cliche, but also what the people around you have sacrificed and what they've given into you for you to be able to achieve that result. So for me, the Gold Coast Marathon would be the best race that I've had so far. I don't really care about like the 5K and 10K and like even the half. Like it doesn't really worry me too much. Like I want to run marathons, and I want to run marathons really, really well. And to tick that one off the list, in my first proper marathon training block, and to be able to go out and execute it the way I did, being relatively new to the sport, that's something I'm really, really proud of, and something that I like owe a lot to like my partner Bronte, coaches, training partners, etc., who really, really helped me along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was there for the half, I think I've talked about it quite a few times on the podcast, but Gold Coast had a really special sort of vibe to it that I hadn't experienced. I don't know. It was just incredible. So
yeah. I think part of that is the fact that you don't have to spend too much time running through Surfers Paradise, because the more you can avoid that place, the better, I think. But yeah, no, you're 100% right, Smitty. Like, I think, yeah, it's a little bit bland, and it's a little bit boring, the course. I mean, you get to run along the beach for a long period of time, and that's really, really nice. But yeah, there's definitely a vibe, and I haven't heard anyone walk away from Gold Coast Marathon going on about it being a bad experience. They put on a really, really good event up there, and and you guys are probably in a similar boat, but for us being little bit further down south, having that warm winter holiday in the middle of the year is pretty awesome too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Paddy. Thanks for coming on. It's been awesome. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's all right, mate. Like, just be better if you can. I'll probably drag this out a little bit too long. Sorry, you've got some editing to do, I reckon.
No, not at all. The only thing that will be if you can do that, mate, I don't know. Yeah, that might. Normally we just drag and drop, and that's it. We're good. So probably everyone's going to hear everything. So all good. No, thank you. Really appreciate it, Paddy. It's been awesome.
Nah, thanks so much, guys. yeah, first podcast. Hopefully didn't chew the fat too much. But yeah, super stoked to have a yarn to you boys and can't wait to get down to some races with you fellas in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have
absolutely.
to catch up in Berlin for sure.